From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme 3 podcast. Hello and welcome, cinephiles, cinema lovers, movie appreciators, friends and family, to the Gimme 3 podcast, a series for cinephiles. This is the show where we pick 3 films based on one theme. I'm your co-host, Nicholas Ibarra, and I'm joined by my astute partner in crime, Miss Bella F. Stratus. Bella, what is going on today?
Hi, everyone. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this episode today. I have been prepping all week and I've been enjoying it so much. And a lot of these were like first time watches for me. So really excited to talk about them with you.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I'm excited to talk to them about exciting to hear that a lot of more first time watches for you, because
Yeah.
that's a hell of a week.
Yeah. Yes, it was a lot of fun though. It was fun. I got to watch some of these with friends, so got to bounce ideas off of them, which made it all that much better, especially as we have some pretty dense movies ahead of us today.
Yeah. It's also, Bella, how are you handling this heat? It is hotter
Oh
than
my God.
Satan's bunghole in Los Angeles right now. If you live in Los Angeles, you know what we're dealing with. Probably if you live anywhere in the country, it's the hottest summer on record, according to some, whatever, the National Meteorologist Society or whatever. But we are dealing with these record-breaking heat wave right now. I've lived in Los Angeles all my life, or in Southern California all my life. I do not remember this many consistent days of temperatures approaching 110 degrees. And I'm in the valley, so it is a hard 110.
Yeah, that's brutal. Oh my God. I've just been staying inside.
Yeah.
It's too hot to go outside.
Oh. Well, speaking of the San Fernando Valley,
right?
If we got the show for you guys today. Previously on the Gimme 3 podcast, we began our celebration of Philip Seymour Hoffman, because it has been 10 years, 10 very fast years since this man's passing. Hard to believe. So on our last episode, we discussed 3 terrific films starring Philip Seymour Hoffman. And today we're going to continue our celebration of Mr. Hoffman by discussing his work with his favorite collaborator and his dear friend, writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson, the pride of the San Fernando Valley, in fact. So real quick, before we get into it, I just want to talk a little bit of backstory on their relationship. PTA himself, he spoke about his, discovery, if you will, of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Not his, I discovered him, but when he first saw him. He talked about watching Scent of a Woman and seeing Hoffman's performance in that film, which was Philip's first major motion picture. And PTA just talked about how he just fell in love with this man as soon as he saw him on screen. From that moment, he knew they were meant to be together. Kind of like what I said last week. When I first watched Magnolia, I just fell in love with this guy. PTA felt the same way. And it didn't take long for them to start working together, because it was in PTA's first feature film, Hard 8, a movie that we are not going to discuss today. But he cast Hoffman in a very small but very, very memorable role. He's in one scene only, as this very obnoxious, eccentric gambler trying to play mind games with the main character, played by Philip Baker Hall. And it's in this one scene that he nearly steals the whole goddamn picture. And that would kind of become a calling card for Hoffman. He pops in, he gets about 5 to 10 minutes of screen time, and then becomes one of the most memorable things about the entire movie. He did that a lot in PTA movies, and then a lot in just throughout his career. But when you watch this early performance in Hard 8, you see it, man. You see this electricity. Philip Baker Hall, the star of that film, talked about it afterward too. Like he just knew like this kid had something. PTA knew it, and thus began one of the most exhilarating director actor duos of the century. So before we go in deep on the three and their collaborations, any overall thoughts, Bella? Any broad strokes you want to touch on for this dynamic duo, if you will?
Yeah, I think, oh my God, I think this is one of like the best dynamic duos ever in film. I was like blown away by their collaboration together, and I think there's just certain actors that are like meant to be in PTA's movies, and obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman's talent was an obvious choice for this, especially like really great big movie, the like kind of great big movies that PTA does make. I think exactly to your point, it's so awesome how much like no matter how big or small the role, Philip Seymour Hoffman will always stand out in all of these films.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's gonna that's a great segue into the first film that we are going
Yeah.
to discuss. So, Bella, if you want to lead us off with their second collaboration ever.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so our first film of the day is a raunchy, hilarious cautionary tale of the extreme highs and lows of stardom in the 1970s porn industry, introducing Boogie Nights. Set in the San Fernando Valley, as always, the film features Mark Wahlberg in his breakout role as 17-year-old Eddie Adams, a hot, naive nightclub busboy with big, big dreams and an even bigger dick. On a On a late night shift, Eddie is scouted by one of the industry's leading porn producers, Jack Horner, played by none other than the iconic Burt Reynolds. When Jack offers Eddie a leading role in one of his films, he's invited into this new family of filmmakers, actors, artists, and outcasts. As his career takes off, Eddie reinvents himself with a new name, an unforgettable name, Dirk Diggler. As
Great
all of Dirk
fucking name.
It's so good. I was not expecting that. As all of Dirk's wildest dreams come true with the lightning fast rise to stardom, he finds himself chasing after the fame through all the pleasures and tortures of an increasingly fast-paced and ever-changing industry, especially on the cusp of the 1980s, an era of crack cocaine and videotape. So as always, PTA has stacked his film with an unbelievably talented and recognizable cast. Alongside Wahlberg and Reynolds, we've got Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, Heather Graham, Don Cheadle, William H. Macy, Luis Guzman, Melora Walters, so many more, and of course, our favorite, Philip Seymour Hoffman. PTA wrote, directed, and co produced this film himself, proving this man was literally born to make movies. And for some background, this film is actually an expansion of a mockumentary short film that he wrote in high school called The Dirk Diggler Story, which he said was inspired by a real life 1981 documentary about this legendary porn actor, John C. Holmes. So I thought that was pretty cool to see like how this evolved, this like concept evolved over time.
By the way, we should mention that John Holmes also had an enormous penis.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the main inspiration for
his name was Johnny Wad was his porn name.
Oh God, that is hilarious. Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, so clearly a great inspiration for this type of film. And you know, PTA got a lot of backlash from producers and even some of his actors, like trying to make this film happen. But ultimately, Boogie Nights was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay for PTA, obviously, Best Supporting Actress for Julianne Moore, which was very well deserved in my opinion, and Best Supporting Actor for Burt Reynolds as well. Man, this movie just scratched an itch that I didn't know I had. Like this was my first time watching it, and I already wish that I could rewatch it for the first time again. I think it's easily a new favorite for me. I loved this film so much. The cinematography, the humor, the performances, the fucking music was so good.
Yeah,
Some of the
great
best needle
soundtrack.
drops ever. Yeah, exactly. But before I get even more carried away, Nick, what were your thoughts on Boogie Nights?
Well, I've seen this movie. I cannot count how many times I've seen this movie. I saw this movie for the first time when I was far too young.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. Dirk Diggler's penis was the first penis I ever saw on screen. So there's that.
Yep.
And then, funny enough, John Holmes was the second penis I ever saw on screen. Just kidding. But, oddly enough, the real story, everybody, this is like slightly inspired by John Holmes and his like rise and fall. But his story ends much worse, and it goes way darker than what we see in Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights ends with a little bit of like hope and ultimately, love and family and togetherness, not the John Holmes story. So if you're curious about the John Holmes story, check out a movie called Wonderland starring Val Kilmer, where he plays John Holmes. Anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Boogie Nights. We're talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman. And when I'm going to talk about these two elements, I want to talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman's introduction to this film. I want to talk about the opening scene where we meet Scotty, or the opening Scotty scene.
Right. Yeah.
So this character, Scotty, who like basically plays like a jack of all trades on these porn sets. He kind of serves as the AD. You also see him like running the boom. You know, he kind of does everything. And so this character, Scotty, he comes into this backyard party that's being like operated by what's his name? Jack Horner.
Yeah, Jack Horner.
Jack Horner, Burt Reynolds' character, all these beautiful women, and he's got the young Dirk Diggler there. And Scotty shows up, and he's dressed like basically a 14-year-old kid, even though he's a grown-ass adult. And he comes into the party, and he spots Dirk, and immediately he's smitten. And he goes over, and Dirk Diggler's sitting next to Reed, who's played by John C. Reilly, who's a total dork dingus guy.
Yes, so good.
And there's these very, like, if you read them on paper, very mundane, nothing lines. Scotty goes up, he goes, "Hey, Reed." And he goes, "How you doing?" Or Reed goes, "How you doing, Scotty?" And Scotty goes, you know. The way that Hoffman delivers this line, you know, and he does like something with his hand. Again, on paper, it's just a mundane greeting. Mm-hmm. But immediately, in 2 lines, he tells you so much about his character. Mm-hmm. He tells you about what he wants. He gives you this brilliant characterization. Like, there's this like life to this person that you're immediately like, oh, this dude is interesting. Yes. And absolutely, he makes the audience laugh. I have seen this film in the theater probably about, 10 times. And every single time that line gets a pop from the audience, his delivery of the line, you know. So they have so funny. They have the briefest of interactions, him and Dirk. He like introduces himself, and he's got just like some funny zingers. I'm not going to like go into every single line that he does, but then Dirk gets pulled away by Burt Reynolds' character. And as he walks away, the camera hangs on Scotty for, like 3 seconds. Yeah. And you see this light vanish immediately because it was a front of light, and he gets real empty. He gets empty very, very quick. And I was like, God damn. For those of you who know me, I'm very big into professional wrestling. I used to cover professional wrestling for a Canadian publication. But in wrestling, there is this phrase, Bella. It's called maximizing your minutes. Maximize your minutes, boy. which essentially means that when you are coming up, you are not going to get a lot of time in the ring, as much time as you need in the ring, perhaps. You're not going to get a lot of time on screen. So you've got to make the most with what you are given.
Yeah.
This scene, this introduction to Hoffman's character, from the time that Scotty walks into the party to when Dirk walks away on him and we hang on Scotty's empty expression, it is literally screen time 1 minute and 2 seconds. And in that 1 minute and 2 seconds, we know exactly who this character is.
God, it's so true.
Maximize your minutes, boy. Shit,
I love it.
This man maximized his minute. He's got 1 minute,
actually.
and he fucking did everything. Jesus Christ.
So true. I really couldn't have said it better myself. Like that introduction was so memorable that I was like shocked that we didn't get more of Scotty like in this film. Like obviously we got some, but I was craving more, honestly. I was like, I love this character so much, even though I've only seen just like bits and pieces of him on the screen. But like you were saying, like in those bits and pieces, like you learn so much about him just through like his body language, like his face, like how he carries himself. Like it's an incredible performance. And that introduction had me like howling at the screen. It was so funny. The fit. The way he like walked, like just mopes into this party.
Yeah.
And so awesome.
Yeah, he's a joy to watch, and he gets probably the most laughs out of the whole movie. Him and John C. Reilly probably. But But yeah, I think you're onto something that I'm a big PTA fan. In the last episode, I say is in my top 5 favorite filmmakers, and that's a bold statement, but I think it's true.
It's so fair. After watching these movies, I was like, shit, he might be one of mine now.
Yeah. But I think his writing doesn't do Scotty's character justice here, because there's another scene which we can discuss later, that is kind of like a big climax for the Scotty character. And that scene is so well written, and that scene is so incredibly well performed by both Philip Seymour Hoffman and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
But then the character just kind of disappears after that.
Yeah.
And there's no real satisfying resolution to his character like the rest of the characters get. And I think that was a really missed opportunity, because he is such a light in this film. That being said, I'm not sure if PTA knew when he was writing A, that Hoffman was going to be in this, and B, that Hoffman was going to be as good as he is in this.
Yeah. No, exactly. I literally wrote, like, you can't cast Philip Seymour Hoffman, put him in such an amazing role like that, and not give him more screen time. Like that was my only criticism of Boogie Nights, was just give me more Scotty. Yeah. Give me a resolution a little bit with that one.
So let me ask, was this one of the films that you watched with a crowd? Because this is a great crowd film.
No, I actually watched this one by myself, which was kind of sad, but because but at the same time, it was so fun. I was literally laughing out loud the entire time, like talking to myself. I made it a whole party.
Yeah.
But oh my God, I fell in love with this film. I was not expecting it. It really blew me away. I had so much fun with it. And like, I was just locked in from beginning to end. Like there was never any point where I was like wavering on like being interested or like moved by what I was watching. So this was like an easy 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd for me the second I finished watching it.
Nice. Yeah. Any very like memorable takeaways or
let's see. I just love how PTA knows how to do a very specific period piece, like same place, same time, San Fernando Valley, 70s, and it just works for me every single time. Like the production design and like the hair, the costumes, the makeup in this film, I fell in love with it. It felt also like authentic and beautifully captured through some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've ever seen. and then like masterfully edited together to create this film that just completely swept me off my feet and carried me on like a crazy high to the very end. But obviously that intro scene, one take, is just incredible. Like I wish there was a better word to describe it, because I feel like incredible doesn't even do it justice. It's just like flawlessly directed, and God, what a way to start a film too. It's so exciting.
What's crazy also is, I mean, this is how you know that PTA is just kind of like born to do this.
Yeah.
I think he was like 27 or 28 when he directed this. He was very, very young.
Yeah, he was super young.
And that didn't go well with some of the old time. Like Burt Reynolds and him did not get along on this movie. I don't know if you read about that, but Burt Reynolds really disliked being on this movie. He really disliked working with PTA. And then, of course, he gets nominated for an Academy Award.
And then he's like, yeah, that movie was great.
No, afterwards, he still talked shit about it. He was like, yeah. I read it.
So funny.
I read his biography. I'm a big Burt guy. I like.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, we just didn't see eye to eye. He's like, I know I was nominated for Academy Award. Just, you know, he's like, he's a talented kid. He's a talented kid. He's just not. Sometimes you work with people and you're just like, you're good at what you do. You and I just don't. Sometimes you just don't
get along. Yeah. I read that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I read that, just like a random tidbit, that he like really wanted his character to have an Irish accent.
Oh, is that right? That's
I thought that was so funny and just so random. Like, I could just imagine PTA being like, no, like, stop. We're not doing this.
Yeah. Also, like, I love Burt Reynolds. Like, really, really love Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
I don't think he could probably pull off an Irish accent.
I don't know if that would have worked. Like, yeah, for him or for the character, that would have just been like a whole other set of questions. Like, wait, what is this guy's story?
Right.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
Ain't no Irish in the Valley, let me tell you.
Yeah, that would have been a funny bit in this. Someone who also really stood out to me is, I fucking love Don Cheadle. Like, he is one of my after watching this, I was like, he's one of my like top 5 favorite actors. I love him. I think he's so underrated. And his character Buck Swope was like one of my favorites in this film. I thought he was just hilarious and like such a sweet character as well. And I absolutely loved him and Melora Walters, who I also really adore. Their chemistry and like just the way they played off of each other was, I wanted like more of that, because they were just so cute and so funny together. And that donut shop scene was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And like, even though so much happens in that scene, I think honestly my favorite part is like right when he walks in, and like Buck he's just like all happy. He's got like his pregnant wife in the car.
Yeah, he's just so, ordering the donuts. Yeah. Oh, you did these for Christmas? That's cute. Yeah, give me some of those.
That's my favorite line. I loved it. It made me laugh so hard, and like it was just so charming. And then of course chaos breaks out, but that scene really stuck out to me for that reason. I thought it was so funny.
Every time I pass by, I'm driving through Reseda, I have to stop at that donut shop and get me a bear claw just for. I
love a bear claw.
Just for old Buck, I have to stop in that same donut
yes, shop. I love that. Oh my god, it's such a good scene. Also, Mark Wahlberg. Honestly, I honestly really am not a huge fan of him, but this role really kind of changed my mind about him as an actor. I was kind of blown away with his performance. It really surprised me. And like, I was really surprised how much I liked his character too. And in the beginning, of course, I thought he absolutely killed it. And his first like, porn shoot scene was hilarious. I loved how he, like, an aspect of his character, and that was that he was like a consent king. Like, he would just be like, oh, is this okay? Right. And they're all like, kind of like, whoa. I thought that was funny.
I wish Wahlberg would go back to doing stuff like this. Like, he used to do some like riskier stuff like this when he was starting out, because he was trying to break away from being Marky Mark, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So he'd do some risky stuff like this. Now he's mostly just sticks in the action genre, but
Yeah.
when it's time to go, when it's time to put up or shut up, he can put up.
Yeah. No, genuinely.
And did you know, Bella, that that cock that unfurls out at the end of the film, Mark Wahlberg's cock was actually bigger, so that and it wouldn't fit in the frame, so they had to make a smaller prosthetic penis, so that way it could just fit in the frame.
There's no way.
That's not true.
Oh my god, yeah, I'm like so glad we see it at the end. I was like, there's no way they're gonna make me sit through this whole movie and I'm never gonna know.
Oh yeah, like, no, you gotta see it.
I was like, I don't want to, but like I have to. Oh my god, that was such a great ending. I lived for it. I was like, oh man, I was like clapping at the end at home all alone. Such a good time.
So yeah, I guess we could also talk about the other big Hoffman scene, which is the New Year's Eve scene, which is such a great. So the first time, the party that I mentioned earlier, where we first meet Scotty, is a great scene. And there's like some great oneers in that where you're just like, hey, it's the 70s. We're fucking having a great time. Disco, baby. Fucking do some weed and look at this. Ass, titties, cock. It's all great. Everybody's having a good time. And then you've got this break into the 80s, which is kind of like just after the midpoint of the film when shit starts to go gnarly. And it's the scene where we know the party is over. We're going into the 80s. So this is the scene where Scotty, tries to make his move on old Dirk. And it goes so horribly wrong, and it's so sad, so heartbreaking.
Oh my god!
Feel for this guy so much, and he just like tries to play it off like he's drunk, and it's just like you see, man, Hoffman's good in this scene because you see his wheels turning like a mile a minute, and he's trying to like salvage it, but he's still like he's there. He's already like committed, and he's just like, do you want to kiss me?
Like, yeah. Yeah, he tries to like take it back and then he's like, wait. Maybe there is still a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that scene actually made me tear up. I was like, I know there's supposed to be like some level of humor to it. Like, I'm a fucking idiot. But like, it made me so upset. It's really sad.
Oh, I mean, I think everybody's been there at that moment, that I'm a fucking idiot, I'm a fucking idiot thing, It's like it's really tough, and he plays it off so well. And that's where I'm kind of like, like I think he appears in the movie like once or twice more, but there's nothing else for the character to do after that scene.
Yeah.
And I think
that
that's
almost
just
feels like the end.
It's just a bummer. I'm sure I'm sure in hindsight, PTA would fix that, but like I said, he probably had no idea how good Hoffman was going to be in this scene. Again, I go back to that first scene where literally his lines are, "Hey Reed," and and with those two lines, he established his character. He elevated this character beyond, what is on the page. So
fully. Oh my god, he's so funny in this. Even like I love like the beginning of that scene where he's trying to get Dirk to like almost chase after him. Like he's a little kid.
Yeah.
And then Dirk gets like distracted and he comes running back and he's just standing there like, come on. He's like a little puppy. It's so funny.
So
a little lovesick puppy for Dirk Diggler.
Dirk Diggler. And who wouldn't be, for God's sakes? He is,
I know,
an adorable piece of ace in this.
It's so funny. Until the shift.
Until the 80s, of course.
Yeah,
until the
the
80s, of
80s
course.
bring out the worst.
But and Sonia always has a hard time watching that part of the film just because it goes,
Yeah.
the first part's so fun. It's like, hey,
It's so fun. Yeah.
we got the disco soundtrack.
Yeah.
We're boning. Everybody's having a good time. We're shooting on film. We're making art. We're winning awards for our
Yeah.
bonerific artwork. And then the 80s come and all the characters, their fame fizzles.
Yeah.
And they go down these dark paths again. And it's always tough for Sonia to watch that element of the film because I think as she falls in love with the characters that we've set up so deeply in the first half. But I always say, it is. I like this movie because it, again, knowing that it's kind of loosely based off of Johnny Watt, old John Holmes.
Right.
That he gave us a nice, homey, heartwarming as you can get with a movie about drugs and porn ending where you have this found family of all of these misfits who've been, quote unquote, rejected by society. And they kind of come together and form this bond and this unit. And you have the patriarch of the family, and you have the matriarch of the family, and you have the son of the family who's probably Dirk, and you have the daughter of the family who's Roller Girl, and everybody's out there doing their thing. It was just I love the ending of this movie because it's a lot more positive and hopeful than a lot of his other films.
Totally. Absolutely. I loved that ending.
Yeah.
It's so peaceful too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a little bit of light at the end of his movies. Maybe not in There Will Be Blood, but
I was going to say, maybe not that one.
but there's always a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. Any
final thoughts on old Boogie Nights?
Final thoughts. Oh, just definitely take the chance to see this in theaters if you can. Like this movie, I just highly recommend this movie to everyone. I loved it, and it's definitely going on my top 100 list after this.
If you haven't seen it, definitely wait to see it in theaters because it plays in theaters once a year at least between all the repertory screens. Between all the repertory theaters in LA, the Beverly, the Arrow, the Egyptian, Vidiots now, it's playing at least once a year in Los Angeles, and I'm sure it's playing in New York from time to time, and I'm sure it's playing in Chicago from time to time, maybe not as frequently as it does in Los Angeles because it is a very Valley, LA-centric movie.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I have seen it in theaters once a year, every year for the last, I don't know, a lot.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I was so bummed I missed it at the New Bev in the last couple months. I remember they were showing it, but
they played it at the New Bev in the last couple months, and they played it at the Egyptian in the last couple months. So in the last couple months, it's already played twice.
So. I'll have to catch it next year.
Next year it is. Which is going to bring us to his junior effort, Paul Thomas Anderson, that is, his junior effort, which is Magnolia from 1999, the goated year of 1999.
Hell yeah.
Written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, an absolutely stacked cast. So that means, hold on, let me pause myself. So that means this movie is 25 motherfucking years old. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's insane.
Anyways, stacked cast here. We got Jason Robards in his final performance ever.
Wow.
I think he passed away before this movie even was released.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
We got Julianne Moore. We've got Tom Cruise. We got John C. Reilly. Philip Seymour Hoffman, of course. Philip Baker Hall. Melora Walters returns. William H. Macy returns. Melinda Dillon. And much, much more. So, Magnolia is a 3-hour biblical epic that takes place right in the heart of the valley. Some of it, in fact, on Magnolia Boulevard, which is where I get biblically drunk from time to time. There are 9 main characters in this film and several other, I'd say, like main adjacent characters, more important than supporting characters, but like I'd say 1 and 1As. So there's a lot of characters. All these characters either connect directly or they have like a degree or two of separation. It's much like a very big, Robert Altman ensemble piece. That's what this is. And I'm not going to run through all of them and their stories because that's a wide net of characters and connections. And then we'll be here for 3 hours, which is how long this movie is. So if I'm talking about the movie, maybe I'll describe them as we go if I need to. But
yeah,
all of these characters, the important thing is all of these characters. That's the thing is PTA would always say like, okay, we're not making 9 different stories. We're making one story. We're making one story. That was something that he wanted to reiterate to his crew so that all the stories felt the same, looked the same, and had the same kind of like heartbeat, which I think they accomplished very well.
Yeah.
So the important thing is that all of these characters, save for a few of our 1A characters, are dealing with either some immense guilt from their past, intense regret's a big theme, or bleak, heartbreaking trauma. And on one rainy day in this San Fernando Valley, all of these characters, all of this guilt, all of this regret, and all of this trauma comes to a gigantic collision course. Magnolia. Bella, what were your thoughts on this movie? Had you had seen this one before?
Yeah, so I had seen this one before, but I didn't really remember it. I think I was like half asleep when I watched it or something. Or just I don't know. I don't remember. I was not fully locked in. But it was really nice to like have I got it so much more on this rewatch, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so much that happens in this film.
Yeah.
But oh my god, I loved this film. Like I don't think anyone could do what he did with this film. Like I think Magnolia is one of PTA's best, if not his best. It's just I love how it's so existential, it's so raw, it's real, it's relatable, it's sad and twisted, but it's also funny and sweet. Like it's everything that is life wrapped up into one giant beautiful movie. And I also loved that the film had like a level of self-awareness to that, like it being a movie.
Yeah.
Obviously we see that in a pivotal scene with Philip Seymour Hoffman's extraordinary character in this film. But yeah, I thought this was like a perfect film, honestly. It was another easy 5 out of 5. I was like, holy shit, we're on a roll this week.
Yeah.
Even Tom Cruise, who is not one of my faves. I've only ever enjoyed him in Interview with the Vampire so far, and I have really liked him in this as well. So he gave a hell of a performance, so I had to shout that out as well.
He is incredible in this movie. Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. I think really like the only thing I remembered from like my first watch was his crying scene.
Yeah.
So out of all the crazy chaos that is this film, that should say a lot.
You didn't remember Respect the Cock and Tame the Cunt?
I didn't remember that.
You didn't remember?
Maybe I blocked that out.
you didn't remember the Battle of the Bush is being fought and won by Team TJ Mackey.
Oh my god, this movie was so much fun to watch with friends. This is one that I did watch with friends. And those scenes we were just dying. We were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Wow. That character is also based off a real dude from the 90s who would like do these kind of like, yeah, these like incel adjacent, like you gotta capture the pussy and this and that. And now all these dudes are just on TikTok. They're just now they just go on TikTok and spout their nonsense. Yeah. But as we all know, yep, they're all just small, passionless, loveless men.
Indeed.
as this film depicts. So
yeah, exactly.
this movie for a long time was my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I don't think it is anymore. The older I get, like, I used to think that it was like, oh my God, this is peak cinema. You know,
yeah.
The older I get, I think I like his more subtle approaches a little bit more. I find The Master more exhilarating to watch. I like Phantom Thread. I find just like
I need to watch
such a masterpiece and so exhilarating to watch. But for a long time, this one was a huge inspiration for me, and even not just in terms. This was a huge inspiration for me in my directing style. I use a lot of whip pans in my work. That was inspired by this movie.
Love it.
I use a lot of rapid push-ins, which were inspired by this movie. Even some of his dolly shots. Even some of his insert shots are dolly shots. You know, which is just adds to this addicting energy of this film. So, like the fast-paced camera work. Combined with the loaded ensemble of stories makes this movie, which is over 3 hours, it's like 3 hours and 8 minutes. It does make it kind of fly by. Or at least for me, 100%. It does.
No, 100%. Even all of the people I watched it with were like, that was not 3 hours. They were like, that went by so much faster than I expected.
Yeah.
Which is so impressive.
Yeah, it really is. We talked about Philip Seymour Hoffman being great at maximizing his minutes. But you know who else maximizes their minutes in PTA movies?
Who?
Alfred fucking Molina.
Oh my God. Yes.
In Boogie Nights, he plays, the guy they go buy or sell the drugs to.
Yeah.
And he's, it's the famous Rick Springfield scene where he's just like, that is one of the most memorable scenes of that movie, where the fucking firecrackers going off and he's singing. So I wish I could see his gun. Anyways, so he's got that scene in Boogie Nights, one scene. And then in this movie, he's got one scene where he's firing Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, played by William H. Macy. He's firing him, and William H. Macy's character is like giving him pushback about why he's firing him. And he's like, fuck you, I pay you, fuck you, Donnie. He's so angry.
He's so angry. He's like screaming.
And then he finds out he's going to get braces. He's like, this is fucking incredible. This is fucking stupid. You're paying $5,000 for braces you don't need.
Oh my God.
He doesn't blink. He does not blink that entire scene.
Not once.
He just stares fire and piss and rage out of it. Fuck you, I pay you.
And Donnie just like takes it. He's just like, whatever. Like, come on, man.
Oh so man. Good. So and then I love Quiz Kid Donnie Smith's character. I love that, the Foxfire Room right here in the Valley. Celebrated a few birthdays there myself. That place is a fucking dive with a capital D and a capital V. And the V is for venereal disease. But love that scene and that setting. There's so many great set pieces in this movie. Just like the set piece of the house that Jason Robard's character and Philip Seymour Hoffman's character spend the majority of their movie. You've got the Burbank studio set piece of What Do Kids Know, that whole scene.
Stanley. I love Stanley.
It's just this movie is rich. It's rich with characters. It's rich with camera work. It's rich with the score. The score by what's his name? Is it John Bryan who did this? Yeah, John Bryan. John Bryan did the score.
Yeah, of course.
And it is very wonderful. I guess we should talk now about Hoffman's character, since this is a Hoffman / PTA episode. So I will describe who Hoffman's character is. He plays an at-home nurse, Phil Parma, who's caring for Earl Partridge, It's Jason Robards. And Partridge is a former TV producer who is like dying. He's dying rapidly and painfully from cancer. And I just think it's, again, very sad that both of these men are not here with us anymore. But how awesome is it that we got to see these two share the screen together in this one? Because that, what a treasure it is to watch.
Oh
like,
my God.
this is two generations of wonderful elite talent going at it. And it's just, it's those scenes for most of the movie, like I said, the camera's whip panning around and it's pushing in on dolly shots, and this guy's over here getting drunk in a bar and fighting with people, and this guy's losing his gun. He's a cop and he's losing his gun, and this kid's pissing his pants on a TV show. It's like very dramatic stuff's happening. But when we come into these guys' world, it's two guys for the most part sitting down. One guy's on a bed talking about the regrets of his life. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman just makes the perfect like canvas for Robards to just discuss all of the miserable shit this guy has done in his life, and basically be like his sponge for like letting out all of his guilt that he's kept in his entire life. It's really an interesting juxtaposition for the rest of the film stylistically.
Yeah, no, 100%. That, I think that might be the scene that stood out the most for me in this film, or like hit me the most. I love that scene with Phil and Earl, and like, I was also so impressed with the writing of it. Like, it was so, like Jason Robards' lines specifically, obviously, it was just so realistic. Like, it reminded me of my own my grandpa on my mom's side has had Parkinson's for a really long time, like years and years and years, and he's been on hospice for a while now, and like, he's a man of stories. He loves telling stories all the time. But so that scene hit really different for me because Phil is sitting there attentively listening to Earl, like trying so hard to make sense of like this kind of jumble of words and names that he's like whispering to him. And I love how you can like sense his frustration, not at Earl for like not being able to form these like the words, but his frustration at like the disease that is preventing him from like accessing those memories and like telling the full story in the way he wants to.
He's like, I know what I want to say, but you're like, I can't say it.
Yeah, and Phil is just sitting there like, you can just see how much he cares and how much he wishes he could just like snap his fingers and make it all flood back to him. And oh man, I loved that so much. I thought it was so real and so beautiful, like brutally beautiful, honestly. That was one of the greatest scenes in the film for me, and like just as such a testament to Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in this and like his character. Like, oh my God, I just loved seeing him play such a gentle soul. And like, especially like after last week with like Andy Hansen and Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, like some really intense characters. It's just amazing that he can play so many different types of characters so effortlessly too. Like, that was something I really noticed in this, is like, it just seems like every character he takes on comes so naturally. Like, he makes everything so real, and like, he makes it all feel real. Like, this is so cheesy. I'm looking at my notes right now, but I wrote down that it's not even like how you say it's a see it to believe it situation. I feel like with Philip Seymour Hoffman, it's like feel it to believe it. Feel it to believe it. Like, everything about his character and his performance in this just made me feel the full spectrum of emotions. And like, oh, I just loved Phil. He was such a great character. And like, oh, one thing I wanted to specifically touch on was like, on top of just being such a like sweet soul and kind of like really caring person and adorable character, he also is like really powerful in that he's there for all these absolutely insane scenes with the Partridge family's tragic history, and he's forced to like either take the full brunt of their issues, or just like specifically with Julianne Moore's character when she's just like screaming at him and then, or he's like forced to just sit there like a fly on the wall observing this like mental breakdown of Tom Cruise's character, since like no one in the family can actually just talk with each other. They're all like talking to him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just thought that was a perfect showcase of like how much of a powerhouse of an actor he is, even on the receiving end. Like, you know, he's got this handful of brilliant actors like Julianne Moore, Tom Cruise, Jason Robards, all just throwing everything they've got at him, and he just takes all of it, like matches their energy blow for blow, even with no words, like just all in his eyes or his body language. It was just, that was incredible to watch for me.
Well, they always say, what do they say? Acting is listening, or acting is reacting, is what they say.
Isn't that what that's what I think we were talking about that with Frances McDormand in Nomadland.
Yeah, right.
And that was very similar vibes to his performance in this, I would say.
It was also, I guess we should talk about the ending, which is, you know, divisive for some people, because there's all of this, you know, guilt and crazy shit going on. Basically, I'm just going to cut to the chase. It starts raining frogs at the end of the movie. For some people, that moment works. For others, it doesn't. It works for me. It always has worked for me. Some people
works for you.
Yeah. Some people think PTA just didn't know how to end the movie, so he just made it start raining frogs. That is not my opinion. I think it's pretty meticulously set up.
I think so too.
Yeah,
especially with all the references to like Exodus and stuff
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah,
it's a very biblical.
It is very biblical.
So it makes a lot of sense.
And all these characters needing to pay for their sins and unable to let go of their past, needing, you know, I don't know, penance. It is an operatic payoff that I think works. But executing it is very difficult. And on this rewatch, because I was so zeroed in on Hoffman specifically, I think he has a major part of why this works. Again, if it works for you, it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
So it starts raining frogs, and we see some of the characters experiencing it, and they're crashing their cars. It's just like total fucking chaos, you know?
It's like pretty violent.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. But then we cut back to this house again. It's totally different energy. And homeboy's either dying on the bed or is dead. And it starts raining frogs, and Hoffman is the first one to deliver a line about this scenario. And he's given what is at the same time a comedic moment and kind of like a cathartic moment. He notices the madness. His jaw drops. His eyes fill with tears, but he doesn't let any of them loose. He moves up. The camera moves up on him, and he says, "Why is it raining frogs?" And I think both Philip Seymour Hoffman and PTA delivered the subtext of this line exactly the way it needed to be, which is like, you know, are you fucking kidding me? Essentially is the subtext. And sometimes when you reach that moment, you want to like laugh, you want to cry, and you're just totally dumbfounded and you don't know how to react. And in that one line, he encapsulated all of that. And I think it allows the audience to be like, okay, this is fucking ridiculous. And also, goddamn, this is so emotional. Yeah,
it's kind of beautiful at the same time.
Maximize your minutes, boy.
Yeah. And, you know, those are like, there's two scenes like that too. I would say, like, even when he's like halfway through the film, he's like trying to track down Frank, the son.
Yep.
And he's like, this is one of those moments in the movies where you're like, this only happens in movies. Right. And he just goes on this like tangent about it. I loved those kind of like meta or like self-aware moments of like, Phil's almost just like one of us, like a viewer.
Yes.
Of like everything that's happening. And even he doesn't even have to say it, like you said, he doesn't even have to say that much to like convince you of that. Like you just understand it the second that you meet him.
Yeah, there's kind of like three, you know, innocent characters in this film. Yeah. In a world full of very not innocent characters. And it's like him, Melora Walters' character, and even though she is a drug addict, but there's a reason.
There's a reason, And then Stanley.
Yeah. Those are the three innocent beings in this madness.
Yeah.
Whew,
Oh,
Magnolia.
so good.
We could talk
So
about
good.
it for 3 hours, but any final
I know.
any final thoughts on
Actually.
it?
No, I think that's everything. I love that movie. I'm excited to like continue to rewatch it over the years because I feel like there's so much of like life experiences and different viewpoints and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I feel like, yeah, over time, the more you watch it, like you'll get a different experience each time, which is really cool. And it makes it kind of a magical film in that way.
The older you get, the more I've discovered this rewatching this movie, and I think it's a testament to how great it is. Like you said, Jason Robards' character reminds you of your grandfather.
Yeah.
This movie becomes a movie that is like, you start to know every single person in the movie. It's like, oh, that's this person. That's that person. I know that person. I know that person. And then the older you get, you start knowing more. I know this person and that person. Who's that? I know this person and that person. So it really becomes even more impactful the more times you watch it. That's just my opinion.
I love it. Yeah, it's a brilliant film, honestly.
An audacious film, very bold, bold. And they gave him a lot of money to make this movie, and they gave him final cut. And I think even he said after the fact, he was like, if I could go back, I'd probably shave off some time off of it. But hey, New Line Cinema was like, we believe in you, kid. Go do it. And he made this immediately after Boogie Nights. He did not want to wait. He did not want to let like the pressure of like what the follow up of Boogie Nights would be. So he's like, I got to do something. I got to do it now. So I think he spent like 8 months writing it.
Wow.
And then they went right into pre-production.
Oh my God.
They shot it. They shot it in like January and February of 1999. And then it was released in December of 1999.
What? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. That is mind-blowing news to me.
Yeah.
Especially like I also did, my friend Will King, who we've mentioned on the podcast here. I watched it with him and he went home and read the script right after the 3-hour movie. And he was saying that like there was still so much more with like the worm character and like the little boy who raps and like this whole entire other like plot line that's kind of insane.
Yeah.
And all of that got cut, which I think was probably the right move. Especially if he's like, I would even shave down more than what I did. But I thought that was crazy because I kind of want to read it too, because I'm like, oh, there definitely was some like not full circle moments there with that plot line in the film.
There's a really, on the DVD, I think it's probably on YouTube also. There's a really fascinating documentary about the making of this film that's like over an hour long. It's like a full feature documentary. Cool. And it starts from like it takes them through pre-production, through production, and even post, and maybe the premiere or something. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but and you watch it and you're just like, oh, okay, I think PTA is on cocaine. Or maybe he's just got a lot of energy.
Yep. We'll never know.
We'll never know. Anyways, we're going to take a break, everybody. When we take that break, you are going to hear from PGA producer, Gimme 3 producer, LADFF executive director, and my wife. Her name is Sonia Maru. And she's got a segment that we call Sonia's Movie Minute. So stick around for all that and much more right here on the Gimme 3 podcast.
Hello, I'm Sonia, and this is my Movie Minute. In 2021, Cooper Hoffman made his screen debut in Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. My reaction when I heard that PTA had cast Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, a teen who had never really acted before, in his new film, I was like, aw, that's so sweet of him. He must miss his friend. When I heard that Cooper was the co-lead of the film, along with another inexperienced actor, Alana Haim, I assumed it would be an ensemble film like Magnolia, and that there would be plenty more experienced people to carry the film. Then Nick and I went to a preview screening of Licorice Pizza at the Fox Theater in Westwood, and I saw these two stars in the making carry the film. I don't think there's a single scene that doesn't feature at least one of them. Cooper was so great as Gary Valentine, the incredibly confident child actor and entrepreneur. Of course, you can't help but associate him with his dad, especially since this is a PTA movie after all. But he very quickly becomes Gary, and you forget all about his real life. Cooper's next movie was 2023's Wildcat, written and directed by Ethan Hawke. Ethan co-starred in Before the Devil Knows You're Dead with Philip Seymour Hoffman. I assume that, like PTA, Ethan must have felt an especially strong feeling of admiration and connection with Cooper because of his relationship with his dad. And just as in Licorice Pizza, Cooper is fantastic. I just saw the trailer for the new Saturday Night Live movie, directed by Jason Reitman, and I was thrilled to see Cooper pop up several times. I'm so excited to see that movie when it comes out in October. I'm sure everyone wishes Philip could be here to see his son grow into a young man and an accomplished actor. But it's really moving to know that a generation of people like Ethan Hawke and Paul Thomas Anderson are here to teach him, root for him, and be part of his life and career.
All right, welcome back to the Gimme 3 podcast, everybody, a series for cinephiles. Today we've been continuing our celebration of Philip Seymour Hoffman, 10 years since we have lost this legend. And today we've been discussing his collaborations with his dear friend Paul Thomas Anderson. We discussed Boogie Nights, and of course we discussed Magnolia. And now we are going to discuss, finally, PTA put this man at the center of the film in The Master. Again, written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joaquin Phoenix, and Amy Adams. And this film follows Freddie Quayle, who is a World War II Navy veteran who is seemingly battling some PTSD, seems like, and is finding it quite difficult to assimilate back into society. He's boozing. He can't keep a job. He's sloppy. He is an instinctive mass of a man. And then one drunken night, he stumbles onto a boat that happens to be occupied by another man, Lancaster Dodd, who's played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And Dodd's hosting all these people who seem to be totally enamored with him. It's a big old party. And Dodd invites Quayle, this drunken buffoon, to stay with him for a bit, a day. A day turns into 2, which turns into 3. And quickly, Quayle himself becomes enamored with this Lancaster Dodd. And vice versa. Dodd is kind of enamored with Quayle himself.
Yeah.
Anybody on the outside, it'd be quick and easy to discover that this Lancaster Dodd cat is a bona fide cult leader. And the character is inspired by L. Ron Hubbard, of course, the son of a bitch who started Scientology. How amazing is it that in Magnolia you got Tom Cruise, and then a few films later, he's got a Scientology movie.
I wonder if that, like, working with him is what made him be like, holy shit, I gotta make a movie about this.
Who knows? I wonder if he reached out to Tom to play Freddie Quayle at one point.
Yeah. Well, I heard a story that he invited Tom to watch the film at his, like, theater at home, and he hated it, and he was like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted.
Great. That is so good. I did not know that. That is so good.
Yeah. He was like, awesome. That's it. That's the movie.
Nailed it. No cuts. We're picture locked.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, that is so good.
So Dodd brings Freddie Quayle, into his inner circle, if you will. And through Freddie Quayle, we get to see kind of like the inner workings of this bullshit artist, how he paints these scenes, how he paints his lies, how he cheats, how fragile he is. And the longer he stays in this inner circle, the power dynamic between these two characters starts to morph a little bit, which is great for us as audience members, because what we get to see are these two powerhouse performances going toe to toe in what may be one of the greatest two-handers of the century so far. The Master. What do you think, Bella, of The Master?
Oh my God. This was another masterpiece.
Yeah.
This film is very unsettling. And there's just kind of daunting in that there's just so much to unpack. Like so much. I feel like there was so much being said without really being explicitly said, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But oh my God, I was mesmerized by the crisp coloring and the cinematography. It's magnificent. I love the visual aesthetic of this. It's such a powerful and captivating element of this film. And then like between
shot
that
on
and the
70 millimeter, I believe this one.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask. I was really curious how they achieved that look.
Just film, 70 millimeter film, baby.
God damn, they looked so good. And then between that and then Joaquin and Philip's performances, I was just blown away. Like those two together, it gave me like a visceral reaction. Like they would make my skin crawl, or like they were both just so crazy in this, so unhinged.
That scene where they first have their like first sit down kind of showdown, where Lancaster Dodd's asking them all the questions. I forget what they call it in the movie.
I think it's something processing.
Yeah, processing. That's what it is. Processing, where Dodd's doing the processing for Freddie Quayle, and he's like, you can't blink. And they just keep trying it over and over and over again, and he keeps asking, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? And they're drinking this goddamn gasoline concoction that Freddie Quayle is just like, oh my
so crazy.
God, these guys are nuts.
Absolutely nuts. Yeah, I feel like Joaquin Phoenix he just feels like an obvious choice for a PTA movie. Like he's got the freak in him, that like raw, unpredictable energy. And I thought his character, Freddie Quayle, was really interesting, like particularly in the way he's written more so. Like, he's got a lot of troubles and deep, deep rooted trauma, and I don't know, maybe people will disagree with me on this, but I felt like instead of painting that in like a sympathetic or like transformative light, I feel like his character is really dehumanized in this film, which I think obviously ties into like the overarching theme at play here of like the master. Because Philip Seymour Hoffman is like this enigmatic, like narcissistic cult leader. And everyone around him like has kind of, even his family, like his peers, his followers, they all fall into like this very clear master kind of like servant dynamic. But then Freddie Quayle comes along, and his relationship with him is very different. Like he isn't just a servant, he's treated almost like less than human. Like their dynamic is a lot more like that of like master and his dog. And like from the beginning, in that scene, the master is like referring to Freddie. He's like, oh, you're a dirty, silly animal. Because he asked him in that scene if he's like, oh, are you a serious person? And then he like farts. It's like dirty animal, silly animal. So good. It's like, what the fuck is going on right now? I was like, I'm scared, but I also want to laugh.
Yeah.
Like this is such bizarre, conflicting emotions. But he's kind of like drilling this idea into Freddie's head of like, you're an animal, basically. And I thought, and even like, I was just thinking about it, like it's almost like a literal metaphor, because like Freddie kind of does behave like a dog. Like he's uncontrollable, he's unpredictable, he humps everything in sight. And like he's just really kind of wild and erratic, like at first like a wild dog, but over time he becomes like more and more obedient when given like the right attention or training by the master and like his cult family. And I think there were two scenes in particular that like really stood out to me in capturing that dynamic with these two characters. And the first is when Hoffman's character gets arrested and Freddy like loses his shit. He's like a guard dog in that scene. He's like attacking all the police officers that are like trying to take him away. And Hoffman's like, "No, Freddy, no!" Like literally talking to him like you would to your pet if they were like barking at the mailman, like, or some shit like that. So I thought that was like really weird to like, just made me feel so weird. And then the second is like when Freddy takes off on the motorbike in the desert and like just never returns. I felt like that was the equivalent to like, you know, letting the dog off the leash and they just like bolt out into the wild, and like it's primal instinct for him to just like escape and not even think twice about it. It wasn't even like premeditated. It didn't even seem like it was premeditative. Like he just, as soon as he was on that bike, he was like, "Oh, I'm not stopping. Like I'm gone." And that was just like such a cool moment, I thought, in the film. So I was like really enamored with that whole dynamic, going like beyond master servant. Like it was just, it was such a brilliant film, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what some of you what you said. There's one element that I think I want to push back on, which is the dehumanization of them, which I think they definitely do in the beginning of the film.
That's true. Not by the end. Actually,
by the end, I think in the beginning of the film, he is. I totally agree with you. He's like, there's a writer from or a director or something from TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, that like wrote about this, that how the three main characters of this film are kind of like represented as like the id, the ego, and the super ego. I wish I could remember this person's name so I could credit them properly. Cool. But Quayle's obviously like the id. He is a total like shoot from the hip, you know, I'm going to do whatever I feel like right now in this moment. And the ego is Lancaster Dodd, who is trying to like box in not only Quayle, but everybody else in his circle to like, let's follow this form and this order and this and that, but only if it's my form and my order and this and that. But I think as the movie goes along, Quayle starts to understand that he is a human. And I think like us, you know, missing moments from his life, you know, finding out about that he once had a love in his life that is no longer there. And I think that is like a little bit part of the dynamic shift. And I do think that when he was driving away on the motorcycle, I do think that was premeditated. And I do think that
interesting.
I do think that was a power play of him saying like, you don't control me.
Ooh, anymore. Okay. I like that.
I control me. And then there's that scene where after all that's happened, Freddie Quayle kind of goes back to this like new campus that Lancaster Dodd has. And there's this one more scene where they basically have one more showdown, and he brings Lancaster Dodd some cigarettes, you know?
Yeah.
And Dodd's basically like, more or less, he's like, don't do that again. I'm the master, you know, don't like disobey me, because if you do, then you're going to fuck up my whole game here. He's like, if you leave again, don't ever come back. He's like, or you can stay. And what I think Quayle wants from Dodd in that moment is for Dodd to be honest and be like, listen, man, you need to tell me that you're full of shit. You need to be honest with me, because that's what I need. I need somebody to love. And if you can't be that person, then this is not going to work. it is a really strong, and again, I don't even know that any of what I said is right, but it's just my
I liked it,
it's
though.
just what my
Yeah.
interpretation of the piece is. And each
I liked it,
time
yeah.
I watch the movie, there's little idiosyncratic things, you know, little touches, little looks. Like you said earlier, it's all done. A lot of this stuff is all done non-verbally. It's all like little eye glances and little quivers of the lip that add so much to the subtext of their relationship and their dynamic and their back and forth. But I hadn't thought about him being like a dog thing. That is really funny to think about.
Weird,
and totally right. The way that he's like talking to him when he's getting arrested by the cops, like no,
no, buddy, no. Might as well have been like down.
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh my god, this is brutal. But oh my god, and yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance was just unreal in this. I don't have much written down to talk about it because I was struggling to even like put into words just how incredible it is. But I was like, shit, I would join his cult. He was really good at what he did.
He does this thing where he's got that, you know, like I always talk about how I love a performance within a performance. Well, this is a performance within a performance, man. Because he's always on, because he's always got to be like this bombastic, bigger than life figure, because he's essentially telling all these people that he is a prophet, you know, that he is like, you know, getting this light from God or space or whatever the fuck. So he's always got to be on, and it's especially fun to see when people challenge him on it. And,
oh my god!
And he starts like losing it, like that one guy at the party who's like, you know, questioning his methods, and he's just like, if you know the answers to your questions, why do you ask me? Pig fuck.
Pig fuck. It's so quotable. Oh my god. Yeah, I loved those moments where like he loses his composure. Especially since all of them are like whenever he's being kind of challenged. I really liked the scene with him and Laura Dern, my girl. I love her. I thought that was such like a brilliant moment where she's like, you know, he's released his second book and she's like, hey, so you kind of like switched the word from recall to imagine when asking like our main question, which kind of like ruins like everying,
changes basically the whole dynamic.
Yeah, like she's like, this doesn't make any sense, and he's like, what the fuck do you want from me? Like he starts like screaming at her, and it's just like, oh, it's funny, but it's also terrifying at the same time, because you're just like, this man is so pitiful, but he also is kind of like dangerous and like aggressive, and that is like really scary in a cult setting, of course. But yeah, oh man. Also, funny enough, I was like, I mean, this is so dumb, but I was like, Philip Seymour Hoffman with a mustache almost made him like unrecognizable for me. Like,
yeah, there's
somehow it changed his whole face.
Dude, I'm telling you what it is like this dude is so good at acting that there's something that with his physicality, he can make himself look different. We talked about this with Capote and how
it's freaky.
Somehow he looked so different in Capote. Like, I don't think they did any prosthetics to his face or anything.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. Even like the second that we meet him in this film, I was like, whoa, this guy has beady eyes.
Yeah.
Like he's got like creepy eyes. And then I was like, what the hell? Like this is Phil. Like they didn't change the actor. Like what am I talking about? But he somehow did it. It's insane.
And even with, you know, Scotty and Phil Parma, the two characters that they just all have these vastly different looks and like physicalities to them. It's like, he's got different hair, but a different hairstyle doesn't make a person look as different as he does in all of these movies. These movies are not that far apart from each other.
That's what's so crazy too. Yeah, is it's not like, oh, he aged or like, you know, like it's amazing.
So that's how, like I said, that's in the last episode. That's how goddamn good of an actor he is. He acts himself to look differently. He's just like, I will look like this now.
Yeah. Just sets an intention for the day. That's it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was so good. And him and Joaquin just had such great chemistry together as well. Like I have to shout out that scene when they're both in the jail cell and Joaquin's like tearing it apart. And Hoffman's just sitting there with like his arm on the bed, just standing all like calm, like looking at his shoes. And such a good like juxtaposition there.
Well, I mean, it is yeah. This was the final film they did together, old Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. Damn. I wish we could have gotten more.
Mm-hmm. But alas. Hey, they went out on a great one. They went out on
absolutely.
On a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah. Truly. I loved this movie. I'm already excited to rewatch it. I feel like all of these movies have so much rewatch value. Like you'll just notice things you didn't notice the first time around. So I'm stoked. Yeah.
And we didn't talk about it today, but if you want to see there's two movies that we didn't talk about that were Paul Thomas Anderson movies that featured Philip Seymour Hoffman. Hard 8, which we touched on a little bit. Watch that just because that's the thing. He's young in that one, but he looks old. They make him look like a 40-something-year-old asshole. Anyways,
and was that PTA's first movie?
That was his first movie, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I got to check that out.
And then Punch Drunk Love. I
need to watch that one.
Which stars Adam Sandler, and Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the bad guy in that movie. And again, he's got about 10 minutes of screen time, but he's just so fucking good in that movie. He's so wild. He is at 11 that entire movie. It is
he's a great villain.
Great. So if you haven't gotten your fill on old PTA and PSH collabs, those are a couple more for you to check out. And it just so happens that we did not plan this at all. We set the intention to make these episodes, which was a suggestion from Sonia, these series of Philip Seymour Hoffman episodes.
Yes.
Just so happened that last week I turned on the Criterion channel, which is the best streaming platform out there for a cinephile. And what do they have? They have a collection of films. They have a Philip Seymour Hoffman collection.
No way.
That's got a lot of the movies that we've discussed over these episodes and more. And it's got a Paul Thomas Anderson collection that has all these movies. So if you want to watch these and more, you can check out the Criterion channel, because that is going to be your one-stop shop to follow along with the previous episode that we talked about and this episode that we talked about. So check out the Criterion channel.
Oh my God, that's so funny. What a perfect coincidence for us.
Exactly. I know. I should fucking contact them and be like, yo.
Be like, hey guys.
Let's collaborate.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that's a wrap on our Paul Thomas Anderson and Philip Seymour Hoffman collaboration episode. We hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully we've inspired you to check out these 3 films if you haven't already, or, inspire you to revisit them again, because clearly all 3 are brilliant works of art. As always, thank you so much to our listeners for tuning into this episode. I'm so excited, but also sad to conclude our journey next week through Philip Seymour Hoffman's incredible filmography. Next week's episode, we're going to feature some of your favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman's supporting roles. Yep, that was your favorite. So don't forget to vote on our Instagram. We're going to be posting a whole bunch of polls for you guys to decide which film we'll watch with Hoffman in an iconic supporting role. So yeah, follow us on Instagram at Gimme3 Podcast. That's GIMME spell out 3 podcast. Also, if you love the Gimme3 podcast and you want to show some more support, here are 2 really easy ways. The first would be automatic downloads. So on Spotify, you can subscribe to our show, click the settings wheel, and toggle on that auto download episode. That way you can listen to us anytime, anywhere, and it also boosts our reach as a show. The second would be subscribe to our Patreon. You guys can subscribe for just $5 a month. And with that, you can access all of our bonus episodes with spoiler-free movie recommendations, and so much more. So click the support the show or Patreon links in the episode description below for that. We'd really like to hear from you guys, from all of our listeners. So just a quick reminder, you can also send a text through the link in the episode description. Let us know your top 3 favorite PTA films, or which other PTA films you'd like to see us talk about in future episodes. So, let's expand our watch list together here at the Gimme 3 podcast. Alrighty, Nick, do you want to tell our lovely listeners where they can find you on the socials?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Nicholas Ibarra, on Instagram at Nicholas Ibarra, and on Twitter, also known as X, at Nicholas P. Ibarra, and the P stands for Phil Fan.
Love it. Had to do it.
Had to do it.
And you guys can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile, or on Letterboxd at Beth Stratus. That's just B and then my last name, F Stratus. Anyways, thank you so much again for joining us on the Gimme 3 podcast, and we'll see you at the movies.